Hello, and thank you for calling the Millionaires of the Bible series call. My name is Issachar Bey. I am the Senior Director of the Temple of Enlightenment International Spiritual Center, and I want to thank all of you for tuning in on the call this morning. We have been going over the Millionaire of the Bible series. We're in our fourth installment. Those of you, if this is your first time, we are actually studying out of the Millionaire of the Bible series, the Joshua book, which is an orange book with a gold star. If you guys want to follow us along, we will be in this book until August the 8th. So if you want to, actually until August the 1st, and then starting August the 8th, we will be in the Millionaire of Nazareth, which is the book, which is a yellow book with the gold star. And we'll be studying the master teacher, Jesus, and how he was a millionaire. We'll be getting into that starting August the 8th. In this one, we are in the fourth chapter, and we will be discussing or getting into the unpacking how to enter the promised land of lavish abundance. That's where we are now. Those of you, if you have the book, it will be on page 75. Beginning in that chapter, we will be getting into that. Our scripture and our text this morning comes from Deuteronomy, the 8th chapter, 7 through the 9th. And it says here in our text, "For the Lord thy God bringeth thee into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and depths that spring out of valleys and hills." Verse 8, "A land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey." Verse 9, "A land wherein thou shalt eat bread without scarceness. Thou shalt not lack anything in it. A land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills thou mayest dig brass." And this text here, it talks about the land that they were promised. Now, the thing about it, when we begin to understand what's going on here, where we're looking at Joshua, who came out of bondage, who was in slavery. He came out of bondage. Moses pulled him out of bondage, pulled him into the wilderness. While he was in the wilderness, he began to study up under the teachings of Moses, and Moses began to teach him the mental laws of action, began to teach him how to really excel and how to have a prosperity, how to move from slave to millionaire. Then we went into how he was able to move into the prosperity law of mental acceptance. Then on last week, we talked about the prosperity law of attraction. And this week, we're going to be discussing how Joshua now, how his journey leads him to enter the promised land of lavish abundance. This was the land that that God had promised them. He had told them that they will receive this land. And something that's very that we need to take note of here is that through all of this is not something that they're just doing just to be doing. This was a promise. God had promised them that they would in fact inherit the land. He promised them that. And it's something about the promises of God that I've always said this, that the word of the Lord is sure. And that when you begin to look at that and understand that the promises of God will never fail, there's one thing that God can't do. He can't lie. And so when he says something, it has to happen. And when he makes a promise, it can never be broken. And as long as we know what the promise is, and we come into a deep revelation, a deep understanding, and begin to just look at it from what it is and understand that we have been promised the land of milk and honey, that we've been promised our own promised land. And so when you begin to understand what we're looking at here, you yourself, everybody listening on this call, you have a promise that you're going to enter your promised land. Whatever your destiny is, whatever your purpose is, whatever it is that you want to manifest, whatever it is that your promised land is, you have and will have the ability to do it. It's been promised to you. Now, whether or not you go in and possess the land, that's up to you. But the promise has been made. And so we see here in chapter 4 that he's coming into a place now where they're getting ready to go in and possess the land. An inner realization comes to him, and what I love about this, let me say this. He had an inner realization that this is about to happen, that this is what's going to take place. We have said this over and over again, and I believe this is the key to success. This is the key to manifestation. This is the key to creation. Anything that you create, anything that you're going to manifest must start from within. If you do it without outside of itself, it's temporary. It won't last, and it's not real manifestation. We talked about this earlier, that whatever you manifest inside in the invisible realm is eternal and invisible, right? That which now becomes manifest, physical realm, now becomes temporary. And so an inner realization of the abundant desire, of the abundance you desire, always precedes its outer manifestation in your life, which means that in order for you to ever have that outer manifestation in your life, you got to have the inner realization first. The word realization means completion, the inner completion of it being complete, of it actually coming to culmination. And so those of you who are listening on this call who heard me talk about the 9 houses, when you come into an inner realization of something is when you get to the 9 floors. When you go all the way up from the first floor to the 9th floor, the 9th floor would be the floor of completion. When you get to the 9th floor, you will begin to see that the inner realization, the culmination, the completion of my abundance that I desired always precedes the outer manifestation of my life. And this is what was happening with Joshua as he was getting ready to enter into his promised land of lavish abundance. We talked about this, that the word Canaan metaphysically means the realm of substance. And we understand that the divine substance that we have and the divine substance that we are going to grab a hold to and connect with is something that is not seen. It's invisible. It's something that and so we talked about this last week, that the law of attraction was something that was invisible. And what the world has done is made it seem like it's a physical thing, but the law of attraction is actually invisible. It's an invisible power. And what we are seeing is the results of law of attraction. When we are attracting the houses, the cars, the money, the different things that we're bringing into our lives, it is the invisible power of the law of attraction power that gets us to be able to become magnetizing and bring that in. Joshua here is in a position now where he's getting ready to go in and take the land. He begins to understand that in order to be successful, he first has to become a master strategist. He has to become a master planner. Anytime that you are getting ready to go and possess your land, your promised land, anytime you get ready to go in and begin to possess that which you have been working on internally, there are some steps that needs to take place. I tell people all the time, systems are saving yourself time, energy, and money. A system is what we would call a strategy, putting together a strategy of how I'm going to go in and possess this land. How am I going to walk in my purpose? How am I going to start this business? How am I going to be a millionaire? It's strategy. I've been doing counseling and talking to many different people individually who are on this call, and it's amazing how all of us are in a prosperity millionaire consciousness. Everybody's there's some people of us who are into stocks and Bitcoin and who are into financial services where we can offer up different services that can put you in a place to really secure your life and secure you even after you retire and so forth. There's many different people on this call who are of money, millionaire, abundance, of financial consciousness, that I think is wonderful, that we're all in the same place, on the same mindset, like-mindedness all together. Joshua realized that he had to be in a place where he had to be a master strategist. He had to be able to put together a master plan. They always say this: if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I'll say that again. If you fail to plan, they're basically saying that you're planning to fail, because you need to have a plan in place. What's your plan? What's your strategy to get this thing off the ground, to actually get in and move into possessing your promised land? And so today we're going to discuss and get into this unfolding. Now, every week, I love this. I love that we're going through this, because every week what I see, I don't know about you, but for me, what I'm getting out of this is that I can see my personal life unfolding as we go into we go into a new layer, a new dimension in this Joshua Millionaire teaching. Because what happens is we can see ourselves in each one of these characters, and each one of these, in the symbolicness of their consciousness, we can see ourselves unfolding as the things that Joshua went through. We actually been through those things, and we can see how he used that, the principles that he used, the techniques, the strategies, the plans that he used. We can actually apply them to our lives and begin to possess our land of lavish abundance. So Joshua comes now, and he begins to now take over the promised land, and he begins to come into a place now. The first thing that he does for his master plan, one of the first steps that he does, it comes out of Joshua 1 and 2. It says, when Jehovah says, arise, go over the Jordan. It says that Joshua then immediately went into the Hebrew camp and prepared, for within 3 days you are to pass over the Jordan to go in and possess the land which Jehovah your God giveth you to possess. So we see here, the first thing in his master plan is to arise and go over this Jordan. Now, arise means that you have to first, before he does anything, he has to consciously see himself getting up and going and being able to shift his level of consciousness. He has to be able to understand that in order for him and his people to be able to go over anything or to go in to possess anything, you got to go up. The Bible says, look to the hills from which cometh your help. You always want to look up. It says, arise. The same thing with the man at the pool of Bethesda. When he was down, he said, I was in this position for 38 years. I was broken and hurt and went through these infirmities. The first thing Jesus says, arise, take up thy bed and walk. Before you can do anything, you got to be able to mentally see yourself getting up. You got to mentally and consciously see yourself elevating up to the next level. You got to first see it in consciousness before you can do it. He tells them, the first thing he says is, arise. Then he tells them to cross over the Jordan River. The Jordan River symbolizes the barrier that stands between you and your desired good. The Jordan River, it symbolizes that barrier between you and your desired good. It's that barrier between you and getting to your promised land. That barrier between you and starting that business. That barrier between you and getting your business funding. That barrier between you and getting everything that you need to walk in your destiny, or the things that you need to get to walk in your purpose. It is that barrier. But in order for you to cross over your Jordan, you got to first learn how to arise. See yourself consciously getting up and elevating up before you can therefore cross over the Jordan. What I love here is that in the book of Joshua, it says here, Joshua 1, 3, and 5. He says here, every place that the sole of your feet shall tread upon, to you I have given it. There should not any man be able to stand before thee, and all the days of thy life. as I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. I will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. And I think that this is very encouraging here, because what he's saying here is every place that your feet touches, you shall have possession of it. And he says that nobody should be able to stand before you and block you in all the days of your life. What he's saying is, as I was with Moses, so shall I be with you. Meaning that as long as you hold on to the promise, as long as you know what the promise is, as long as you know where you're going. That's why it's very important about it. It's two things that we need to understand. We got to understand who we are, and we got to understand where we're going. Because if we don't know where we're going, then we're lost. But people will say, well, I don't know where I'm going. Well, you don't know where you're going that's why it's important that you find your destiny, that you find your purpose, because when you find your destiny and your purpose, it will then allow you to start moving and start getting into a place where you can start elevating and moving into the place where you can begin to move into a spiritual compass of your life and start moving where you need to be. You start moving intuitively. You will start connecting to the divine within. The God within you will begin to direct you and tell you, you know what, go here and move here. There's some people on here now who are getting ready to make some major moves in 2022. You are living on the east side, on the East Coast. You may be moving to the West Coast. Some of you who have been living in the West Coast may be moving to the East Coast. Some of you who are living on the East and the West may be moving to the Midwest. And so what happens is, before we can do anything, we have to first be able to come into a level of consciousness and begin to hold on to the promise that was given to us. Joshua says that, one of the things that I love about his journey is that he begins to understand the importance of the divine substance. And he's going to Canaan. Canaan rules substance, right? And what I love about him being able to move into this new paradigm, this new dimension he's going into, is he begins to understand that rich in the realm of substance is where the prosperity comes from, because Canaan represents the inner rich realm of substance out of which all wealth flows. The divine substance is out of which all wealth flows. But substance is passive. It waits for you to deliberately mold and shape it through your prosperity thoughts, words, and actions. Yeah, let me say that again. The divine substance here, Canaan, represents and the rich in the realm of substance out which all wealth flows. But now that substance that we're talking about is passive, and it waits for you to deliberately mold it and shape it through your prosperous thoughts, your prosperous words, and your prosperous actions. Because after I start thinking prosperity and thinking prosperous as a millionaire, and then I start speaking prosperity and speaking words, my millionaire words and my millionaire prosperity affirmations, and speaking as a millionaire, I have to now start acting and actually operating like a millionaire. My actions must be in correlation with my words, which must be in correlation with my thoughts. Those of you who missed Wednesday call, oh my God, it was absolutely amazing. It blessed me. I don't know about anybody else, but I talked about the secret of prayer. And just to give you a little piggyback, because it kind of coincides with this, prayer, those of you that came out of the church, they always told you that prayer changes things. If you pray, prayer changes things. We got to pray because we could change this by praying. But that's not what the Bible really said. When we got into it last week, the teaching was phenomenal. It told us that prayer doesn't change things. Prayer changes us, and we change the things. So if you guys haven't got a chance to listen to that, you can go back into our archives on our YouTube page on the Temple of Enlightenment, and it was a great teaching on the secret of prayer, on how to pray, what prayer is, and what does the Bible say about prayer. The Bible says whenever you pray, believe that you have received it, and after you believe that you receive it, you shall receive that which you have prayed for. And so we went into Mark 11:24, and it was definitely a blessing. Those of you that hadn't got a chance to listen to that, it definitely will help you out and coincide definitely with what we're teaching here in the Millionaires of the Bible series. The second step here that Joshua does in his success plan, it says here in Joshua 2, the second chapter, Joshua sent 2 spies into the promised land to study it. It says here, when the 2 spies arrived in the city of Jericho, which was located out just inside of the border of the promised land, they made a tremendous discovery. Let's see here. And he begins to get into a place where I love this, because this is what happens before. If you look at what's going on now, you can kind of see the trends of what happens. If we go back, we look at in the first chapter when they got out of bondage and Moses pulled them out of bondage, they began to get in the wilderness. When they got into the wilderness, Moses called some spies together, because Moses says, we're not going to stay in the wilderness, we're going to the promised land. Why? Because God already had promised us that we're going to receive the land of milk and honey, the land of barley, the land of water, the land of pomegranates and olive oil and all those great, wonderful resources. He promised us those things. So what Moses did was Moses sent the spies. He sent Caleb, he sent Joshua, he sent the other spies over to the promised land to spy it out. Why? Before you actually go in and actually get ready to possess your promised land, you got to be able to see it. You got to see what you're walking into. You got to be able to see what it is that you're going to be possessing and going into. That's why I don't know how many of you are actually working with it, but we talked about this last week, the Wheel of Fortune. And being able to put those pictures and begin to, your mind operates with pictures. If you're going to, there's a course, I don't even know if they sell it anymore. It's called the Mega Memory. And what the Mega Memory course is it teaches you how to memorize things, everything. But one of the secrets to the Mega Memory course is that whatever you want to memorize, they tell you to attach it to a picture. So what happens is, if I need to memorize a credit card number, if I need to recognize a phone number, memorize a phone number, if I need to memorize a paragraph or a picture, a paragraph or something that may be a little difficult to remember, they tell you to always attach it to a picture and connect it into your mind, so that when you automatically pull up that picture in your mental theater of your mind begins to open up that file and will begin to give you the information that you attach to that picture. The mind operates in pictures. That's why if any of you are going to visualize anything and use the secret and the power of visualization, you always want to use pictures. You always want to use pictures when you are meditating, pictures when you are visualizing, because that's how the brain, the subconscious mind, and the conscious mind operate through picture. So when Joshua sends these spies over to spy out the land again, what he's doing here is he's now getting to a place where he wants to now begin to see, what are we getting ready to walk into? What are we going to be encountering? I know we went a while back before, but just to make sure that nothing has changed, just to make sure that it is what it is, I want to see what we're getting ready to walk into. It says that he used 2 spies, right? But then it goes on to say that in order to enter your prosperity land, Joshua used 2 powers. And the 2 powers he used were the powers of no and the power of yes. And if you learn how to use your power to say no and your power to say yes, you don't fear anything. No person can ever come and keep you from your your inheritance or keep you from the promised land. When you saw how to say yes, which means that you are now entering the promised land, you are saying yes to accepting the good and to accepting all that happens. Now, I think that's very phenomenal that he's using the powers in the second part of his success plan, the powers of yes and no. Now, I will tell you this, and you guys can use this, and I use this in my regular life and how I operate regularly in the physical world. If I go somewhere and somebody tells me no, first of all, I'll say this. You can never tell me no if you don't have the power to tell me yes. I will not accept no from anybody who cannot also does not have the power to tell me yes, which means that if I go somewhere and the person tells me no, but then they have to go get somebody else to tell me yes, then I can't accept your no. Because I will never take no from somebody who doesn't have the power to tell me yes. When you begin to understand the powers of no and yes, the power of no is powerful because you can say, no, I'm not going to accept any drama. I'm not going to accept the illusion of brokenness. I'm not going to accept this this inconsistency in my life, the drama. I'm going to say no, and I don't accept that. But I am going to say yes to the abundance, to the lavish abundance. I am going to say yes to my prosperity, to my millionaire, my millions of money that shall flow from the north, south, east, and the west. I will say yes to that. But I will say no to the people who are not on my level of consciousness, the people who don't want to grow and excel, the people that don't want to expand their consciousness, the people who don't want to become a millionaire but want to stay in bondage. Those people that want to stay in the wilderness, they can stay in the wilderness. I'll say no to them, but I'll say yes to the people who want to go with me into the promised land. Those people, maybe some have been left in bondage that didn't want to come into the wilderness and they wanted to remain a slave. I'll say no to them, but I'll say yes to those that want to excel and go higher in life and expand their level of consciousness. And so I begin to understand the power of no and the power of yes. And I think when you really look at life in its entirety, one of the things that I've noticed, even with counseling people and talking to people, one of the major problems that a lot of people have is the power to say no. A lot of people, sometimes you say yes all the time. Everybody wants you to help them. Everybody needs a hand. Everybody needs this. And we say yes, we say yes, we say yes, we say yes. And we think that if we say no, people are not going to like us. If we say no, people are not going to respect us, or they're going to talk about us, or they're going to say mean and nasty things about us. But there's a power in being able to say no. There's a power of being able to do. So, one of the things I believe in also is this: what you're willing to walk away from will determine what you're willing to walk into. And what you're willing to walk away from is basically what you're saying no to. So your power to say no is very powerful, because if I'm willing to walk away from people who want to remain in bondage and in the wilderness, it will show that I'm willing to walk away from that. I can be the only one. I can be outnumbered. It can be a whole bunch of people who are going one way, going to the left. But I want to go to the right. And so if I'm willing to say no and walk away from that, what are you willing to walk away from will determine what you're willing to walk into. The understanding the powers of yes and no. And so Joshua uses that here in the second installment of his success plan. And he began to operate and really talk to the people about saying, listen, we have to learn how to operate and use the power of no and the power of yes. All obstacles and barriers, one of the things he would say no to is this. He would say all obstacles and barriers to my good are now dissolved quickly and in peace. He said no to hostile environments and hostile people and hostile circumstances, and so he began to say, yes, I now enter my promised land where I belong, quickly and in peace. I begin to affirm my good here and now. He began to say yes, learning the powers of no and the powers of yes. The third installment that he talks about here is the installment here. He talks about sanctifying yourselves, meaning to clean yourselves inwardly and outwardly. And so when you talk, he says in the third one, to cleanse yourself, sanctify, which means to cleanse yourself inwardly and outwardly. Now listen, what he's saying is clean yourself from negativity, from a negative mindset, from negative thoughts, those bitter feelings that you had, all of that bitterness that you had from coming out of bondage, being in the wilderness. We're not going to take that into the promised land. We're not going to take that in. We're not going to take in the animosity. We're not going to take in the ego. We're not going to take in none of that. We need to release and cleanse ourselves from the negative attitudes, from the grudges that we have. We need to move into a level of forgiveness now. There may be somebody in our camp that you had a quarrel or a disagreement with, and you're still holding on to that. We can't move into the promised land with that. We need to make sure that we're clean, that we're sanctified. Now, in order for us to be sanctified on the outside, we got to first sanctify ourselves on the inside, because whatever we do on the inside is a direct image mirror of what happens on the outside. So this is the same thing too. If you're entering to your promised land, you're going in to possess the land. You're going in to possess this business and this house, this car, whatever it is that your promised land is. You got to be able to sanctify yourself. You got to be able to say, you know what, I can't have any negative thoughts about anybody. I can't have any negative concepts, any bitterness, any animosity. I need to release it and let it go. I got to let it go, because I'm getting ready to move into my promised land. And if I'm moving into my promised land, I don't want to bring that negativity into me. Listen, you know why? And this is perfect. What Joshua is teaching them is that your emotions and your feelings are the magnets. And what he's saying is, listen, I don't want to get into my promised land and encounter negativity. Because didn't we talk about this last week in the law of attraction? What you harbor secretly, you magnetize to you. You pull in, you draw in. The law of attraction, the word attraction means to draw, to pull in. What you secretly harbor, you pull in, you draw into you. And I don't want to be entering into my promised land, getting my new car, my house, and I meet it with negativity. I meet it with animosity. I meet it with all these negative emotions and feelings. Why? Because I never sanctified myself. I never cleansed myself inwardly. I was still holding on to some things psychologically, some negative patterns, some negative thoughts, some negative concepts. I still had some negative habits that I kept. And what happens is you only attract what you are. So I got to get the negativity out of me, because I will still keep attracting negativity. So when a lot of us come into the frustration and we're like, listen, I'm going into my promised land and I don't understand why things are not working out and I'm getting all this negative stuff that's happening, you need to go back and sanctify yourself, because what that means is that something inside of you, you're still holding on to negative patterns, negative psychological constructs. You're still dealing with things on the inwardly of a negative of a negative realm. And in order to disassociate yourself from that in the outer realm, you got to first get rid of it inwardly. And so I think that that's very important that we get ready to do that, because I don't want to get into my promised land and have to face negativity and negative stuff. I want to be able to magnetize and manifest the good that I have within me. So I got to release all the negative patterns, all the negative thoughts. I got to release that. You know, we've been talking about the law of mental acceptance, right, of accepting our good. We've been talking about attracting the good things. But we got to learn also, we got to be realistic. I mean, everybody on this call, we have negative thoughts. We have negative things about us, you know, that we have going on in our lives, and we all are not perfect. We are all a work in progress. Nobody on this call is perfect. But at the same time, we still have to be conscious enough and accountable enough. We talked about this last week, that one of the laws of attraction was the law of accountability. We have to be accountable enough to be able to understand and know that we have to be able to remove the negativity out of our mindset, out of our habits, out of our thoughts, out of our words. You know, some of us, we say things negatively. We say things out of our mouths all the time that we've been saying it so long we don't realize that it's negative. We'll say, oh my God, I'm so sick. Oh man, I was sick as a dog. Oh, you know what? We say stuff like that, right? And we don't realize that words are powerful. And because those are cliches that we grew up with, our mothers and our fathers said, and we've been saying it for so long, we don't realize that what we're saying is really negative. And we need to be very conscious of those things and break those patterns. And so, somebody be like, oh man, today was a rough day, man. Some people at the job, they tried to kill me. They almost killed me today. You know, we say stuff like that. But we don't realize that words are powerful. We got to be able to get those negative thoughts out of our minds. We got to be able to get those negative habits, those negative constructs out of our consciousness, out of our psyche. And then what happens now, we begin to now move into a different perspective of how we're operating so that we can sanctify ourselves. And then it says, again here, he says, one of the next steps that he tells them to do here, it says to sing your priests, right? The priests metaphysically are the high-powered thoughts of victory and your words of success before you to stand facing the barrier. So another thing Joshua is saying here is that he's sending out his priests, which are his thoughts of victory and his words of success. So he's sending out the thoughts of victory, already claiming the victory of possessing his promised land, but at the same time, he's speaking the words of success into the atmosphere. And I'm going to do a whole teaching. I should do it this Wednesday on the power of words, because when you speak, there's 3 levels of the words that you speak. There's 3 levels. And so when we begin to understand how powerful your words are, the Bible says, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. And so when we begin to understand how powerful our words are, we'll begin to be a little bit more careful in what we speak into the atmosphere. And so he tells them to sing your priest before you. Your priests are your thoughts, your high-powered thoughts of victory and your words of success. And then he also says here that we are to look at the divine promises that assure us successful results are our heritage, and that we begin to continue to study and lay hold to the word. Then he tells us to let our thoughts bear the ark of the covenant, by dwelling upon the divine promise. Let your thoughts bear the ark of the covenant by dwelling upon the divine promise. And so what that means is that as you dwell on the divine promise, right? As you dwell on the divine promise, and what it does is it helps you to stay mentally stable. It helps you to stay emotionally stable, but it also gives you that mental strength and that mental ability to withstand and to cross over the Jordan. What's the Jordan? The Jordan River is the barrier that comes between you and your desired good. And so when he says, let your thoughts bear the ark of the covenant, what he's saying is he wants you to continue dwelling upon the divine promise. We talked about the divine promise in the beginning when he says, for the Lord thy God bringeth thee into a good land, a land of brooks of water and fountains and depths that spring out of valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey, a land wherein thou shalt eat bread without scarceness. Thou shalt not lack anything in it, a land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills thou mayest dig brass, the land of good and honey, the land of milk and honey. And so when you begin to let your thoughts bear the ark of the covenant to dwell upon your divine promise, that's what it's going to do. It's going to mentally secure you. It's going to emotionally secure you, but also give you the ability to have that mental strength to overcome your Jordan. you know, it's very important that we begin to understand the significance here of what it means to really move in this journey of getting to our promised land. It's anytime you do anything in life. I know many of us have accomplished. I know there's people here who have degrees. There's people here who have great accomplishments. You're published authors. There's many things that we have accomplished on this call. Many of everybody on this call. But when I look back over, and when we all look back over the things that we have accomplished, it's never really the thing that we accomplished that matters. It's really the journey to get us there. You know, when you look back over the journey, the things that you had to encounter to get to that place. But it was that journey that you remember. It's the journey, the pitfalls, the valley lows, the high mountaintop points. It's that journey that you went through that really resonates with you. And so, you know, one of the things that, you know, I think that we need to do is we need to be able to understand how to continually, as Joshua has given us one of his principles, is to send our priests out. Send them out. Those of you that are getting ready to enter your promised land, send your priest out. Send out your powerful thoughts of victory and your words of success. Speak over your own life. You don't need nobody to speak over you. You don't need nobody to speak into your life. Speak over your own life. Your words have power, and your words will begin to make things happen. Your words will go forth and not return unto you void. They will go out and set forth that which you have called it to do. Your words are powerful. And then what you do is you let your thoughts bear the ark of the covenant. You keep dwelling on the divine promise that was given to us. And watch how your mental and your emotional security, your emotional and mental structure will become secure, and you will become strengthened emotionally and mentally. Now, I'll tell you this. Somebody who's mentally strong and mentally emotional, and emotionally strong and mentally strong is really strong. It's not about the muscles. It ain't about how much weight you can lift, how many, if you got a 6-pack or an 8-pack in the physical room, all that don't matter. Because in life, when you really look at life, what happens is how mentally strong are you? You know, when people get into a crisis situation in their life, the first thing I ask them is where they are mentally. We have to be able to get a hold of them and get them mentally strong and secure, because once they mentally go, they're done. There's nothing we can do if you're not, you know, when they go to the doctors and the doctors give them that report and they say, you know what, the doctor told me I got 6 months. We got to get them into a mental capacity where they don't believe that report, but we're able now to believe another report and say, hey, listen, don't listen to that report, but listen, there's a change that we can make. We can go within the mind. We can go and send out the high priest, and we can send out the high power thoughts of victory and the words of success, and that we can change this situation. Well, how can you change my situation when the doctors told me I only have 6 months to live? Well, we can change your situation because we can go inside and we can create the cause. Well, then we'll change the effect. So that's how we can change your life. And anybody on this call, no matter what situation you're going through or whatever it is that you are encountering, you can always change it by creating the cause. For every cause, there will always be an effect. The Bible says, and always, there will always be seed time and harvest. Whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. And so we can go in now and begin to really change our lives. One of the things that I love here is that what he does here in the 5th part of his success plan is give thanks. It says, as the Hebrews passed through the Jordan River, Joshua instructed them to pick up 12 stones from the water, one for each of the tribes of Israel. And after arriving on the edge of the promised land, they built an altar using the 12 stones as a memorial of thanksgiving to Jehovah of having divinely delivered Israel's 12 tribes. The altar was to stand through the centuries as an abiding witness to their divine deliverance and ultimate victory over the impossible odds. Give thanks. Now, I wish I had time to really go into this because the 12 tribes of Israel are in correspondence to the 12 disciples, which are in relation to the 12 powers of man. I wish we had time because I would love to go into this because this can get really deep when we talk about the power of the 12. But giving thanks is great, to have great gratitude, to be thankful for what it is that you have went through, to be thankful for, you know what, while I was going through some difficulties in my life, I'm thankful that I am where I am now. I'm thankful that I was able to make it through. Why? Because the things that I went through, they made me stronger. They made me wiser. I've always said this. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, what does not kill you can only make you stronger. You will never know how strong your tea bag is until it's dipped in hot water. Listen, these are the principles that I live by. You will never know how strong your tea bag is until it's placed in hot water. And so when we begin to understand that our challenges were not created to paralyze us, challenges were created to make you stronger, to move you and push you more along into your level of consciousness. And so when you begin to look at that, you begin to understand and look at how you are going to give thanks, a thanks offering. Being able to say, I'm thankful for everything that I went through, the good, bad, and the ugly. The Bible says all things work together for the good of them that love him and that are called according to his purpose. All things, good, bad, ugly, and different, all things work together for the good of them that love him and are called according to his purpose. And so when you get to that place in your promised land and you look back from where you came from, you can say, I thank you. I have nothing but gratitude and thanks for everything that I went through, because I knew that if I kept going, I was going to get to my promised land. I knew what the promise was. I knew what my intentions were. I sent my spies over. They began to spy out the land. I knew what I was coming into. I had already mentally accepted my promised land. I had already worked with the law of attraction. I had already operated in all these techniques, and I'm learning that all of these things that we're learning in each week and all of our techniques are going to help us to really manifest and really get the life that we've all wanted to live. One of the things that I really want to, I'm doing a lot of stuff this year, working inwardly on myself. But one of the things that I want to do in 2022, and maybe we can get together, some of you on this call, I want to travel. I want to get together a travel group, and I just want to travel the world. I want to just go everywhere. I mean, Thailand, New Zealand, Brazil. I want to go everywhere. We can go to the Philippines to see the master teacher, Reverend Israel. We could travel. I want to travel. I want to go all over the world. And so, a lot of people say, oh, that sounds so good. I sure would love to travel. But what? You have to give yourself permission to live. There is no but. When we talk about setting up a travel group and being able to travel, the thing we're asking is, when does it start? When are we going to put this together? Because we're going to send out our priests, our high-powered thoughts of victory, and speak words of success. We're going to go out and send out the priests before us. And so we're going to be able to move into our promised land and begin to really do some great things. And so when we begin to do that, we'll begin to understand and really get an understanding here of the promised land. We learned some great techniques today. And I say this again. These teachings mean absolutely nothing unless you apply them to your lives. We got to apply them. Knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. And so that's why I provide you guys with the call notes, with the lesson notes, so that you can write down, take notes, that you can go back, that you can study, that you can put these principles and these concepts that we're learning. Today we learned about being able to accept the realization, the completion inwardly. We've been able to see that if we accept the inner completion, it will proceed and actually go out and begin to mirror in the outer world what we have already manifested or completed within. We learned that we need to arise, and before we do anything, we have to first arise in our level of consciousness. We got to see ourselves getting up and being able to get up and move and operate at a higher level of consciousness. We got to be able to use our yes and no powers of the mind. We got to be able to sanctify ourselves, which means that we got to be able to perform and utilize our inner and outer cleansing. We got to learn how to dissolve the barriers, which means that we can do that by sending out our high priest, which is our high-powered thoughts of victory and our words of success. We got to learn how to give thanks, because when we learn how to give thanks, what happens is we are walking in gratitude. And what happens is when you walk out with a gratitude and an attitude of thanks, guess what you're doing? You're also magnetizing and operating in that level of thankfulness. And you start now attracting situations and opportunities that will show themselves to you to be thankful. The universe will begin to give you situations that will show how thankful, will bring thankfulness back to you, will bring opportunities that will be thankful and thankfulness back to you, because you are walking in an attitude and a gratitude of thankfulness. And when we begin to understand that, we begin to understand our purpose. The walls of lack and delay have crumbled away. I now enter my promised land where I belong. I maintain it permanently, prosperously, and in peace. Now, I tell people all the time that everything that we've been teaching so far, we operating in consciousness. But I tell you guys all the time, I'm not concerned about getting things physically, because anybody on this call, we can get money, we can get cars, we can get houses, we can get anything. The main thing that I want to get is the wisdom on how to keep it. I don't want to get to the promised land and lose it. My goal is to get to the promised land and be able to permanently, as this affirmation says, the walls of lack and decay have crumbled away. I now enter my promised land where I belong. I maintain it permanently, prosperously, and in peace. I want to be able to have my promised land permanently. I don't ever want to be able to lose it. But I have to be able to have the wisdom, which we're going to learn, on how to keep my promised land. So a lot of y'all may say, oh, my God, we just got to the promised land. Yeah, you got to the promised land, but can you keep it? Can you maintain it? You got that nice Benz. You got that nice BMW. You got that nice Range Rover. You got that nice 3,500, 5,000 square feet home, but can you keep it? Do you have the consciousness? Do you have the wherewithal? Do you have that mental and emotional security to keep it? And so that's where the wisdom comes in, at being able to hold on to the promise. Our affirmation for today says, I am an irresistible magnet with the power to attract unto myself everything that I divinely desire. According to the thoughts, feelings, and mental pictures I constantly entertain and radiate, I am the center of my universe. I have the power to create whatever I wish. I attract whatever I radiate. I attract whatever I mentally choose and accept. I begin choosing and mentally accepting the highest and best in my life. I now choose and accept health, success, and happiness. I now choose lavish abundance for myself and for all humankind. The tide of destiny has turned, and everything comes my way now, and so it is. our question for today on our call notes states, what is your promised land and how are you going to enter it? So today I just want you to answer that question. If you want to think about it for a day or two, but I want you to think about what is your promised land? You know, what is it that you consider to be a promised land? Is it a goal? Is it a business? Is it something that you're manifesting? And then once you have determined what your promised land is, how are you going to enter it? How are you going to get in? What concepts and precepts? What are these rules and precepts that we've been using are you going to use to enter into your promised land? And I'm telling you, the more you work with this stuff and the more that you operate with these tools and these principles, man, I'm telling you, it's phenomenal, man. It's really amazing how, like, you know, Johnny Coleman, God bless her, she was one of the greats. And she said it best. It works if you work it. It works if you work it. But you got to work it. And if you begin to work it and utilize these principles, it's impossible for you not to manifest and be successful. It's impossible for you not to be a millionaire if you operate and use these principles that we have been going over. Applied knowledge is power. And so we are just thankful for these teachings and for everything that we have been going through in this call and everything that we have been accepting. So just before we end, I just want to say this one thing, that I'm excited about your future. I believe that the days ahead of us are much more greater and monumental than the days behind us. And I'm actually excited about where we're going. It's imperative that we embrace this consciousness, that we embrace this teaching, because what this does is it elevates us, it moves us, and it puts us in a different place. It makes us uncomfortable. It changes our habits. And it makes us now go in and begin to restructure our lives. And so we are excited about where we're going. I want to say this. We are continuing with our circulation part of our call where you can join into. And so far, every Sunday, we've been working with the Millionaire seed, which is a seed of $37. And that seed is the seed that we have been working with. Those of you who say, you know, I don't have the $37, you don't have to give it. Whatever you want to give. If you want to give $10, $15, $20, if you want to give more than $37, you can give more than $37. But we operate with the 37. The number 3 represents the number of self-expression, right? And what that means is that we are stepping outside of ourselves. We are actually utilizing what's inside of us as we restructure our inner man. We're self-expressing it on the outside, right? And then the number 7 represents the number of redefining, of redeveloping. It is the number of us really stepping back and really kind of just reshaping and remolding, or what we call that substance that was passive, right? And being able to mold and shape it into how we want it to be. And so when you add the 3 and the 7 together, it gives you the number 10, which is really the number 1. The number 1 is what builds the foundation. It's where we begin to start and level off what it is that we're going to be moving into. And so being that we all are millionaires, we call it the Millionaire seed. And so those of you that want to be a part of that, we definitely appreciate. What you can do is we have 4 ways that you can sow your seed. The first way we have is Cash App, which is going to be $TOESC. And then we also have PayPal, which is going to be issacharbey@gmail.com, which is issacharbey@gmail.com. We also have VENMO, which is going to be the @ Issachar, ISSACHAR-Bey. And then we have ZELLE, which is going to be issacharbey@gmail.com. So these are the 4 ways that you can sow your seed today. And we want to thank you that when you release your seed, it's 100-fold return. So we believe that once you release something out of your hand, we don't spend money, because we understand that in the word spend is the word in, but we circulate it that it comes back to us 100-fold. And so that's why we call this the circulation part of our call, because whatever we release out of our hands, it circulates back to us 100-fold return. And so I want to thank all of you for being a part of this call, and that you guys got something out of this call today. I know I did. I know I'm going to be utilizing calling my priest. I'm going to arise. I'm going to cross over my Jordan, And so I'm hoping that you guys are really utilizing these principles as you go deeper and deeper into your millionaire lifestyle, your millionaire consciousness, as we all are elevating ourselves in millionaire status, that we are using these principles. And so I'm excited about you guys. And so I want to thank all of you for being a part of this great call. Just before we end, I like to say this one thing. Your destiny is not a matter of chance, but it's a matter of choice. Thank you, and good evening.